This is a dry bean fungicide trial for control of Sclerotinia. And I'd like to introduce Michael Schaefer, who's the research specialist who works with me. Michael is from just outside of Minot, where his brother and his father still farm. And he got his undergrad at Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota, and is now pursuing his master's degree at NDSU, concurrently with working here. He's been a tremendous asset to our work out here, and he will introduce this trial, and then we'll walk the plots and show you some of the treatments.
So this is our dry bean trial, looking at the fungicides that are labeled or soon to be labeled for dry beans for control or suppression. It was brought to us by North Harvest last year, and we ran the trial on 14-inch rows. We had pretty good results here in Carrington. It was also ran in Fargo with no disease pressure, and also in Langdon with variable results. This year we changed it up a little bit. We did it on 14 and 28-inch rows. We're doing it here and also in Staples. There was a bit of a problem in Staples with root rot, so we probably won't have results from there this year. Looking at the first ratings, hopefully we'll have good results here this year. There's pretty significant disease pressure this year, a lot higher than last year, due in part to the temperature at bloom initiation, or when the plants were really susceptible. We applied the fungicides basically at the R2 to R3 growth stage, a little bit later than you would normally do, but that was mainly due to, without the moisture, the canopy just had not closed yet, and it really was pointless to do that application right at bloom. So we waited a little later, and we'll see how that works. We run misters. The misters are really what help push the dry beans along. It was really dry, and once we put the misters up, that's when the dry beans started to move along. That's when the canopy started to close. The misters are on a timer. We try to keep the canopy moist to facilitate that disease pressure. We don't inoculate with spores. What we do is we just rely on native sclerotia, and we also, I believe, did put out sclerotia this year to help facilitate that disease.
Our planting date in this case was May 28th, I believe. And as far as the canopy closure, listen, our beans were really stunted, really stunted from drought stress. We have a lot of these mist systems put up, and we just could not accelerate it any faster. And we got it up on time in terms of normal timing, which is we had it up in time for bloom initiation. But at that time, the canopy was totally open because the beans were so stunted. We've been extremely dry here. The rains pretty much shut off after about June 7th or 8th here. So we ran the misters just enough to irrigate the beans and get them to pretty close to canopy closure. And then we put on our first fungicide application then. And it happened to be that it was late R2, very early R3 when that first application went on. Okay. But very well, we want to talk about treatments here. First off, just to calibrate everybody, let's look at the non-treated check. That's plot 104. 104 is right here. Okay, and so you can see right away that we have a little bit of disease in there, right? In this case, we are testing these with 2 sequential apps. I know that in this area, it's very common that in a year without significant disease pressure, you might just do 1 app. But because most of these treatments are the same fungicide applied sequentially, you should be able to take these results and translate them out to a single application strategy to reduce disease pressure. You have to understand that we do need to create results that are also applicable to the Red River Valley, and in that area it's almost universal that they have to have 2 apps. Okay, and so that's why we do 2 apps. Okay. Anyway, 104 is right here, non-treated check. 106 is Endura, 8 ounces, applied twice sequentially. Right here, this nice green patch, okay? So it's looking very good. Those of you who were on the tour last year will remember that it also looked good last year. Okay, Endura reliably looks quite good. Next treatment that I think most people would be very interested in would be Topsin. In this case, we wanted to test 30 fluid ounces, which is equivalent to 1.5 pounds. We had an application error the first treatment, so actually the first app was at 40 fluid ounces, second app at 30. Okay. Last year we did see in one trial a rate response between 30 and 40 fluid ounces, another trial no rate response. Take it for what it's worth, that's in plot 205, which is right there to the right of Michael right there, and it's looking pretty good in this case. Okay. When we walked it in detail just before the tour here, I'd say it has just a little bit more disease than Endura, but not a whole lot more. The other thing that we are really interested in is how do we, if we're going to do a two-app strategy, how can we use both Topsin and Endura? And how do we optimize that? Do we go with Topsin first, Endura second? Or Endura first, Topsin second, okay? And what I'd like to show you here is Endura first, Topsin second. This is plot 207. And that's right there by Michael. And when we walked this earlier today, that looked really identical to Endura twice. Okay, and looking back to what we found last year, of that sequential, if you're going to go with two apps, the treatment that looked the best was placing Endura, using the Endura when the disease pressure was highest. You remember last year, we were really hot through July. And then it cooled off in the very late July, early August. And so our first fungicide app, which went on in mid-July, went on when the temperatures were not favorable for Sclerotinia. Yeah, we had lots of water out here, but it was super hot. The second app, however, went on when the temperatures were really favorable for Sclerotinia, and then, yeah, we had the water too, even though it wasn't raining, but we had the water from the misters. And in that case, Topsin first, Endura second worked as well as Endura twice. And again, I think that's because we got the Endura on when disease pressure was the highest, okay, when disease pressure was extreme. The other option, Endura first, Topsin second, didn't work quite as well. At least there was a trend towards it working not quite as well. And this year, in this trial, we're just about 60–65% through data collection right now. But thus far, it looks like the two are working about equivalently. And so I guess the jury's out, but those data will be posted online at the later this year, hopefully around December or so. Okay. If you go to the Carrington Center, click on plant pathology on the left side, then scroll down to dry beans, and then you'll see our fungicide testing results posted there. The product I'd like to discuss here is Omega. Omega came on the market just the last few years. This is tested at 0.85 pints an acre, plot 206. Between the blue flags there. You can see it's looking pretty good. I'd say it looks pretty equivalent to, for instance, the Topsin treatment. Next treatment I'd like to point out here is Proline 107. Proline 107 is right here, okay, and this is applied at 5.7 fluid ounces, which would be the high end of the labeled rate, and I believe it's labeled at 5 to 5.7. I guess it's definitely not any higher than 5.7. But you'll see there's quite a bit of Z's in here. And we've tested Proline enough in our trials that I'm willing to say that, unfortunately, this is not too unusual, okay? Proline, I think we can say pretty confidently, is not as good a product as some of our others for management of white mold on dry beans. ProPulse is the other one I'd like to discuss. This is a new product from Bayer. It has a second ingredient. It's basically Proline plus the second ingredient, fluopyram. Fluopyram has quite a bit of activity against white mold. Fluopyram is closely related to the active ingredient in Endura. But again, it is a premix, and so the application rate of the fluopyram isn't necessarily as high as you'd always want it. And 203, right behind Michael here, right here. Okay, and looking at this one right here, it does look pretty good in this case. It clearly looks better than the Proline. Okay, and that's not too unusual. We have frequently, but not always, seen an improvement with ProPulse relative to Proline. Let's see, those are the major products that I wanted to discuss. We have some more in here if someone wants to look at it, wants to see them. There's a new product from Syngenta, which is called Cannonball. This contains flutioxanol. Anyone know what flutioxanol is also? What other product from Syngenta contains flutioxanol? Okay, Apron Max. It's in your seed treatment. Okay, this is the component of your seed treatment that's used to target Rhizoctonia and Fusarium. Okay, if you're using Apron Max. Okay, and so Cannonball is a new product. First time we're ever testing this is plot 105, and 5 would be right here. Okay, and the beans are starting to mature. Back here, there's not much disease. Here we got a little patch, and here we have another little patch here. But relative to the buffer right beside it and this buffer, it's clearly offering some disease control. But it's a new product that I've never evaluated previously. This trial has 5 reps at 14-inch rows, 5 reps at 21-inch rows. Okay, which means that if the fungicides perform equivalently between the two, we actually end up with 10 reps. Okay, I don't know that they will perform equivalently, but hopefully we should be able to differentiate treatments quite nicely here and give you some good recommendations. Again, this project is made possible through the support of North Harvest. All the integrated Sclerotinia work on soybeans is made possible through the funding of the Soybean Council. So these are your checkoff dollars, and we appreciate your support because, again, ultimately you guys are the ones funding this.